He was having one of those ordinary afternoons that felt like any other. The sun was shining softly through the windows, casting warm light on the living room where he had been looking for a misplaced wallet. It was a quiet day. His wife had gone out for her work meeting, and the house was unusually still, except for the occasional sound of birds outside and the faint hum of the refrigerator. He was not expecting anything unusual, not in a million years. He had already searched the living room twice. The wallet was nowhere in sight. Growing slightly frustrated, he decided to check the bedrooms, thinking it might have accidentally slipped onto a table or a bed. He walked slowly, trying to remember where he might have left it the day before. His steps echoed lightly across the polished wooden floor, a reminder of how empty the house felt without. The chatter of his wife or the gentle movements of the maid going about her work. The maid was known to be meticulous. She had been with them for years, and they trusted her completely. She was polite, quiet, and always managed to keep the house in perfect order. Most days, she went about her work without even needing to speak much. She was in the kitchen now, humming softly while doing the dishes. That was the sound he had heard earlier and assumed to be her usual gentle background presence. As he walked down the hallway, I thought about how strange it felt to have the house so empty. His wife had been busy with her own work lately, and their interactions had become brief but polite. Sometimes he felt a distance growing between them, but he brushed it off as the usual ebb and flow of a busy life. He had no reason to suspect anything unusual. No reason at all. He stopped in front of the maid's room. He had never really needed to enter it. It was usually closed, private, and respected as such. Today, he had no choice. He needed to check if the wallet had accidentally fallen in there. Among the cleaning supplies or personal belongings he knew nothing about, hesitating for just a second, he pushed the door open slowly, expecting the ordinary. The usual quiet space with neatly folded clothes and personal items arranged carefully. What he saw made him freeze instantly. The room was empty in the usual sense, but there was someone sitting on the small chair near the window. At first his mind struggled to process the image. The face staring back at him was unmistakable. His wife, in the maid's room, sitting quietly looking directly at him, as if she had been waiting for this exact moment. His heart skipped a beat. Confusion, shock, and disbelief collided all at once. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. He could feel the blood rushing to his head, and every thought that had ever made sense in his life seemed suddenly meaningless. How could this be? Why would his wife be in the maid's room? His mind raced, searching for explanations, each one more improbable than the last. He blinked, hoping that somehow this was a trick of the light, a misunderstanding. But there she was, sitting calmly, composed, and eerily still. He tried to speak, but no words came out. All he could manage was a barely audible "what?" His voice cracked, sounding strange even to him. She smiled faintly, a small, knowing smile that made him even more unsettled. There was something in her eyes that suggested she had expected this, something he had not anticipated. It was not fear or guilt, but a quiet confidence. Almost like she was in control of something he had no knowledge of. He took a cautious step into the room, his body tense, unsure whether he should approach or retreat. Every instinct screamed that this was wrong, that the world had shifted into a strange, unfamiliar place in that single instant. His wife remained seated, unmoving, yet every muscle in his body was alert. He noticed the faint scent of her perfume, familiar yet out of place here, mixing strangely with the smell of clean linen and the faint detergent, scent lingering in the maid's room. His mind went back over the last few weeks, trying to piece together anything that could make sense of this. There were the small changes he had noticed, the subtle differences in her routines, the times she had seemed distracted or secretive. At the time, he had dismissed them as stress or work-related fatigue. He had trusted her completely, and the thought of her deliberately hiding something had never crossed his mind. Yet here she was, proving that reality could be far stranger than he had ever imagined. Still, a part of him tried to rationalize. Maybe she was testing something. Maybe this was some kind of role-playing, a joke, or an experiment he didn't understand. But the seriousness in her eyes told him otherwise. This was not a game. The calm, deliberate way she sat, the quiet steadiness of her gaze. Everything about her presence demanded attention and careful consideration. He swallowed hard, feeling his throat tighten. The room felt suddenly smaller, closer, as though the walls themselves were pressing in. He could hear his own heartbeat thumping loudly in his ears. The ordinary afternoon had been replaced by a strange, tense silence, where a simple misunderstanding could change everything he thought he knew about his life. It was like walking into another world without warning. "Why are you here?" he finally managed to ask, his voice shaky but determined. He needed an explanation, some words that would restore his sense of reality. His wife's response came slowly, deliberately. Each word measured. "I needed to see things from a different perspective," she said quietly, her eyes never leaving his. "There are things you don't understand yet, things I had to do on my own." Her words only made him more uneasy. They were cryptic, almost like a riddle, leaving him grasping for context, for clarity, for any sense of what was happening. He wanted to ask more, to demand answers. But he realized that pressing too hard might make her withdraw further into whatever she was doing. He stepped closer, cautiously, trying to bridge the physical distance as well as the emotional gap that had suddenly expanded between them. "You could have told me," he said softly, almost pleading. "Why would you hide something like this?" Her eyes softened, just slightly, a small crack in the otherwise composed facade. "Some things are easier to understand when seen, not explained," she replied. Her calmness was disarming, but it also made the situation feel heavier. He could sense that whatever she was involved in required secrecy, patience, and perhaps even sacrifice. He had never considered that his wife could operate in a world so different from the one he thought he shared with her. The silence returned, thick and uncomfortable. He looked around the room, noting the familiar objects of the maid's daily life. It was as if these objects had taken on a new meaning in the context of what he had just discovered. The neatly folded towels, the carefully arranged cleaning supplies, the small personal items on the dresser, all of it suddenly seemed like part of a larger puzzle that he had no idea how to solve. His wife stood slowly, moving toward him with a measured grace. Each step was deliberate, calm, yet charged with a sense of purpose. He felt the tension in the room rise, the air thick with unspoken questions. He wanted to speak, to demand explanations, but he also knew that rushing her might close the door on any answers he could receive. "I didn't want to shock you," she said gently, her hand reaching out, almost touching his. "But some truths can't wait. You had to see this for yourself." He stared at her hand, feeling the warmth and familiarity, and yet feeling the strangeness of the situation more keenly than ever. His mind was spinning, trying to understand the motives, the timing, the entire purpose of her presence here. It was a moment that would forever alter his perception of the life he thought he knew. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he spoke again.
"Oh,
His voice steadier, but still filled with tension. "I don't understand. I want to, but I don't. Why are you in the maid's room?" "What are you doing?" She paused, considering her words carefully. "There are things you will learn in time," she said softly. "Right now, all I ask is that you trust me, even if it is hard. Some parts of life have to be faced before they can be explained." He looked at her, searching for any hint of deception, any sign that this was some elaborate prank or misunderstanding. But there was none. The seriousness in her eyes, the quiet strength in her posture, the calm certainty in her voice, all of it told him that this was real. And that reality was far more complex than he could have imagined. The afternoon sun continued to filter through the window, casting long shadows across the room. He felt a strange mixture of fear, curiosity, and awe. Fear of the unknown, curiosity about the secrets his wife had been keeping, and awe at the depth of her resolve. The ordinary day had been irrevocably transformed by a single moment. A single accidental entrance into a room he had never thought would hold anything extraordinary. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. The world outside continued its usual rhythm, unaware of the tension and revelation unfolding in that quiet, sunlit room. He realized that life would never feel quite the same again. Nothing could return to how it had been before. The image of his wife's calm, knowing face in the maid's room was seared into his mind. a reminder that beneath the surface of everyday life, there were depths and mysteries he had never begun to fathom. And as he stood there, caught between confusion and understanding, the ordinary afternoon stretched on, carrying with it the promise of revelations yet to come, secrets waiting to be uncovered, and a new chapter in a life he thought he fully knew but was only beginning to discover. He could not get the image of his wife in the maid's room out of his head. Every step he took after that accidental discovery felt heavier, as if the world around him had subtly shifted. The house that once felt familiar now seemed layered with hidden stories he had never noticed before. He kept replaying her words, her calm demeanor, and that faint, knowing smile, trying desperately to find a clue, a hint, anything that could explain why she had been there. That evening, when his wife returned from her meeting, the tension was palpable. She walked through the door with her usual composed grace, but he could not meet her eyes immediately. He busied himself in the kitchen, pretending to be absorbed in chopping vegetables, while his mind raced, weaving through all the possibilities, from the mundane to the extraordinary. His hands moved mechanically, slicing through carrots and onions. But his thoughts were elsewhere, circling around questions with no easy answers. Finally, he could no longer hold it in. "We need to talk," he said quietly, trying to keep his voice steady. She looked up, sensing the seriousness in his tone. She did not seem surprised. Rather, she nodded slightly, as if she had been waiting for this moment. Her calmness was both reassuring and frustrating, because it offered no immediate explanation for the confusion and shock that had gripped him. They sat down at the dining table, the soft light of the room casting shadows that seemed to echo the tension in the air. He took a deep breath, struggling to find the right words. "I saw you today," he began, hesitating for a moment in the maid's room. "I don't understand." "Why were you there?" She looked at him steadily, her eyes reflecting patience and quiet determination. "I knew this day would come," she said softly. "I knew you would find out eventually. There are things I had to do, things I could not tell you until the time was right. I wanted to protect you and our family from complications that you were not ready to face." His mind spun. He had always trusted her completely. But this revelation made him feel as if he had been living alongside someone whose inner world he barely knew. He leaned back in his chair, trying to process her words. "Protect me? From what?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She hesitated, then continued, "There are situations in life where seeing is more important than explaining. I could not fully explain everything to you because some parts are not easy to understand without experiencing them. I had to handle them carefully, step by step." He felt a mix of frustration and curiosity. Frustration because he had been kept in the dark. Curiosity because he was desperate to understand. "I don't know what to say. I feel left out. I feel like you've been living a life alongside mine that I don't know anything about," he admitted, the words spilling out before he could stop them. She reached across the table, touching his hand gently. "I never wanted to hurt you," she said, her voice firm yet tender. "I had to make decisions that seemed strange, but I thought they were best. Sometimes doing the right thing requires actions that look odd from the outside. You will understand, but it takes time." He looked into her eyes and saw the sincerity there. He wanted to believe her, to trust that there was a reason for all of this, but the uncertainty gnawed at him. For years, he had believed that their lives were open books to each other. Now, he realized there were chapters he had not read, pages she had kept hidden. The foundation he had relied on felt shaken, yet not broken. There was a fragile thread of trust, and he clung to it. Over the next few days, he found himself observing her differently. He noticed the subtle patterns in her behavior, small gestures that previously seemed ordinary, now hinting at hidden layers. She was careful with her time, deliberate in her movements, and often seemed lost in thought. It was as if she carried a private world within her, one that he had never been invited into. The realization made him both uneasy and fascinated. The maid continued her duties as usual, unaware, or at least appearing unaware, of the tension brewing beneath the surface. He caught himself wondering about her involvement. Was she part of the secret, or merely a backdrop in this unfolding story? He could not tell. Every glance, Every interaction seemed loaded with unspoken meaning. Even the simplest actions, the maid arranging flowers, tidying the living room, felt like pieces of a puzzle he did not yet understand. One afternoon, he found himself walking past the maid's room again. The door was closed, and he stopped, his curiosity pulling at him. He knew he had to respect her privacy, but the urge to peek, to see for himself, was strong. He reminded himself of his wife's words. Some things are best seen to be understood. He realized that the discovery he had made was only the beginning. There were layers, perhaps many layers, that he had no idea existed. That evening, he and his wife sat together after dinner, a quiet tension in the room. He wanted answers, but he also wanted to listen. "I want to understand," he said softly. "I want to know why you felt you had to do this alone. But I need you to tell me, to let me in." She nodded, a small smile touching her lips. "I will in time," she said. "It's not something that can be explained all at once. There are risks, complications, and details that you need to be ready for. I had to prepare you and myself before everything could come to light." Her words were both reassuring and enigmatic. He realized that this was not a simple story of hiding or deception, but a complex situation that required patience and understanding. The realization brought both relief and apprehension. Relief that there was no betrayal, no malicious intent. Apprehension because he knew the journey ahead would test their relationship in ways he could not yet predict. In the days that followed, he began noticing the little things she did to communicate without words. A glance, a pause, a carefully chosen phrase all seemed to carry hidden meaning. He learned to read between the lines, to pay attention to subtle cues, and to approach every interaction with both curiosity and caution. He discovered that understanding her actions required observation, empathy, and a willingness to embrace uncertainty. He also noticed a change in himself. The accidental discovery in the maid's room had shaken him, but it had also opened his eyes to the depth of his wife's character. He began to appreciate her courage, her intelligence, and her ability to navigate complex situations with grace. The admiration he felt was tinged with humility, as he realized how little he truly knew about her inner strength. Late one evening, they sat together in the living room, the house quiet except for the faint sound of the wind outside. He turned to her, his voice soft but firm. "I want to be part of this, whatever it is. I want to support you, even if I don't fully understand yet. But I need honesty, openness, and trust." She reached out, holding his hand tightly. "You will have all of that," she said. "I need you by my side, but you must be patient. Some things cannot be rushed. You have to be ready to see the truth when the time comes. And when you are, you will understand everything." The conversation ended there, leaving a sense of anticipation in the air. He realized that the discovery in the maid's room was only the first step in a journey that would challenge his perceptions, test his patience, and ultimately deepen his understanding of his wife and their relationship. The ordinary life they had shared was now layered with mystery and complexity, and he knew that the days ahead would bring revelations that could not be ignored or avoided. He went to bed that night with a mixture of emotions, curiosity, anxiety, admiration, and a quiet determination to understand. Sleep was elusive, as his mind replayed the events of the day. The image of his wife's calm face in the maid's room imprinted in his thoughts. He realized that life was never as simple as it seemed, and that love sometimes required courage, trust, and a willingness to face the unknown together. The next morning, he awoke with a renewed sense of purpose. He was determined to approach the situation with patience and empathy, to learn what he could from the unfolding story, and to support his wife through whatever challenges lay ahead. The accidental discovery had changed him, not just in understanding her secret, but in recognizing the depth of their bond and the resilience required to navigate life's hidden layers. He knew the journey had only just begun, and that the days ahead would reveal truths that could shape their lives forever. The days that followed were unlike any he had ever experienced. His life had been ordinary, predictable, and safe, and suddenly it was filled with uncertainty and questions. Every glance at his wife reminded him of the maid's room, that strange, quiet place where he had discovered her secret. He could not shake the image of her calm face staring back at him, nor the sense that there was much more to understand. He tried to focus on his daily routine, but his mind kept wandering. Work, errands, even small conversations with friends felt less important now. His thoughts always returned to the house, to the hidden layers of his wife's life, and to the mysterious world he had glimpsed. He was torn between wanting answers and knowing that some truths required patience. He wanted to trust her, but trust now felt more like a fragile thread that could break at any moment. One afternoon, he returned home earlier than usual. The house was quiet, the usual rhythm of life suspended in a strange, anticipatory calm. He found her in the living room reading quietly. She looked up and smiled, that same faint, knowing smile that had unsettled him so deeply in the maid's room. It was comforting and disarming all at once. He approached her slowly, feeling a mixture of curiosity, anxiety, and admiration. "I need to understand more," he said softly, taking a seat across from her. "I feel like I'm only seeing part of the story, and it's driving me crazy. I don't want to feel left out, to feel like there's this secret life I know nothing about." She set her book aside and leaned back, her expression thoughtful. "I know it's difficult," she said. "It's not easy for me either. There are things I have to do, decisions I have to make, and risks I have to manage. It isn't about keeping you out. It's about protecting you and making sure everything unfolds safely. Some parts of life are dangerous or complicated, and understanding them fully before experiencing them can be overwhelming." He listened, trying to absorb her words, but the questions kept multiplying in his mind. "Then help me understand," he said, leaning forward. "I want to be part of this. I want to support you. But I can't do that if I don't know what's going on." Her eyes softened. "I will guide you, step by step," she promised. "You have to be patient and observant. You'll learn more by seeing and listening than by asking too many questions at once. Some things unfold in their own time." Over the next few days, he began paying closer attention to her actions. He noticed small patterns, habits that he had never seen before. She often spent time near the windows, watching people pass by, taking notes quietly in a small notebook she always carried. He realized that her life included more than just their home, more than just the routines he thought he understood. She was observant, careful, and deliberate in ways he had never appreciated fully. One morning, he found her standing near the doorway of the maid's room. She was holding a folded piece of paper, her expression serious but composed. He approached her cautiously. "What is that?" he asked. She handed it to him without a word. It was a list of names and addresses, along with small notes written in careful handwriting. He felt a mixture of confusion and concern. "This looks important." "What is it for?" "It's part of what I've been managing," she explained. "I can't give you all the details yet, but this is something that needs to be handled carefully. It's why I needed privacy and focus. Some of these matters are sensitive, and revealing them too soon could cause problems." He nodded slowly, realizing that her secrecy was not about hiding from him, but about protecting the people involved, including him and their family. The weight of responsibility she carried was enormous, and he began to see her in a new light. Her strength, courage, intelligence were evident in every careful decision she made. As he watched her, he noticed the quiet way she managed the household alongside these secret responsibilities. She balanced the ordinary tasks of daily life, cooking, cleaning, managing schedules, with her hidden duties. It was an extraordinary display of discipline and skill, and he could not help but feel admiration mixed with a renewed sense of love. One evening, they sat together in the garden. The sky was painted in shades of pink and gold, and the air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers. He felt a need to speak, to bridge the distance that had grown between them. "I've been thinking about everything," he said. "I realize now that there's more to you than I ever knew. You've been handling things I can't even imagine, and I admire you for it. I want to be supportive, even if I don't understand everything yet." She reached for his hand, holding it firmly. "You're part of this, even if you don't see all the details yet," she said. "The trust between us is what matters most. You don't need to understand every step immediately. You just need to be willing to be present to observe, and to support when it counts. Her words resonated deeply. He realized that trust was more than just knowing everything. It was about believing in her intentions, believing that she was acting with care and thoughtfulness. He had to let go of the need to control, to know every detail, and instead focus on being patient, understanding, and supportive. In the following days, he noticed subtle changes in himself. He became more observant, more attuned to the nuances of her behavior and the hidden layers of their lives. Small details, the way she paused before making decisions, the careful way she communicated with others, the quiet determination in her eyes, told him more than words ever could. He began to understand that life was not always about explanations. Sometimes it was about awareness, empathy, and shared presence. The maid's presence in the house continued as usual, but now he viewed her differently. She was part of the environment that his wife managed, and he realized that the household ran smoothly because of the careful orchestration behind the scenes. Every task, every small interaction was part of a delicate balance, and he began to appreciate the unseen effort that kept their lives organized and safe. One evening, while the house was quiet, his wife invited him to sit with her in the study. She handed him a small journal filled with observations, notes, and reflections. "This is part of what I've been managing," she explained. "You don't need to read it all at once, but it will help you understand my perspective. It shows why I've done what I've done, and why some actions needed to remain private." He took the journal with care, flipping through the pages. The words revealed a side of his wife he had never seen, thoughtful, meticulous, and deeply concerned with the welfare of everyone involved. It was a glimpse into the complexity of her life, a life that required both courage and patience. He realized that she had been living with responsibilities and decisions that were invisible to him, yet essential to their family's safety and well-being. As he read, he felt a growing sense of respect and love. He understood that her secrecy was not about mistrust or deception, but about navigating challenges that required discretion and careful planning. He also understood that he was now being invited into her world, step by step, learning to see and appreciate the hidden layers of her life. The evening passed quietly, filled with reflection and quiet conversation. He felt closer to her than ever, even as the mystery of her actions remained partly unresolved. He realized that understanding would come in time, and that patience was as important as curiosity. The journey they were on together required trust, empathy, and the willingness to accept that some truths reveal themselves only when the moment is right. As he went to bed that night, he thought about the accidental discovery in the maid's room and how it had changed everything. He felt a sense of anticipation, knowing that more revelations were ahead, but also a sense of peace, knowing that he and his wife could face them together. Life, he realized, was never as simple as it seemed, and love was often about navigating the unseen, the unknown, and the unexpected with patience, courage, and trust. The tension in the house had grown quietly over the past weeks. He could sense the weight of the unspoken, the invisible pressure that came from the layers of secrecy and responsibility his wife carried. She had begun to trust him more, sharing glimpses of her hidden world, but there were still things he could not fully grasp. He understood that some truths would only reveal themselves in time, and that patience was a vital part of trust. One afternoon, as he was moving through the house, he heard a voice calling softly from the maid's room. Hesitant, he approached the door and paused. The maid was inside, arranging some clothes on a shelf, and she looked up at him with a calm, neutral expression. He felt a strange mix of curiosity and anxiety. The room had always been private, and now it felt like the gateway to a story he was only beginning to understand. He stepped inside carefully, aware of the tension in the air. "I don't mean to intrude," he said quietly, "but I feel like there's something I need to understand. Something important." The maid nodded slightly, acknowledging his presence without speaking. It was clear that she had a role to play in the life his wife had been managing, a role that required discretion, patience, and a careful awareness of boundaries. He realized that her presence in the household was not just about cleaning or maintaining order, but also about supporting the intricate network of responsibilities his wife had created. His wife appeared in the doorway, moving with her usual calm composure. She looked at him and the maid, her eyes conveying both reassurance and quiet authority. "There are matters that must be handled carefully," she said softly. "Sometimes misunderstandings can happen if boundaries are not respected or if trust is not maintained. You need to understand the importance of patience, observation, and careful judgment." He nodded slowly, feeling both admiration and a touch of anxiety. He realized that the situation was more complex than he had imagined. The maid's role, his wife's hidden responsibilities, and the delicate balance of their household all formed a network of trust, secrecy, and careful planning. He understood that any rash action could disrupt the fragile harmony they had maintained. Over the next few days, he began observing the dynamics of the household more closely. He noticed how his wife communicated with the maid, using subtle gestures, shared glances, and carefully chosen words. Every interaction seemed loaded with meaning, each movement deliberate and purposeful. It became clear to him that the household was more than just a place of living. It was a carefully orchestrated environment where every detail mattered. One evening, as the sun began to set, he found himself in the kitchen with his wife. She was preparing dinner, moving with her usual grace and efficiency. He watched her silently for a moment, then spoke softly. "I want to help," he said. "I want to understand more, to be part of this. But I feel like I'm still on the outside, like there's so much I don't know." She paused and looked at him, her expression gentle but serious. "You are a part of this," she said, "but understanding comes gradually. You must learn to observe, to see the patterns, and to recognize the subtle ways in which responsibilities are handled. Some knowledge cannot be given outright. It must be earned through awareness and patience." He nodded, absorbing her words. He realized that his role was not just to participate, but to understand, to recognize the intricacies of her life and the careful decisions she had to make. It was a lesson in humility, trust, and empathy, and he felt both challenged and inspired. Later that week, a situation arose that required immediate attention. A small issue with the household finances had been overlooked, and it could have caused confusion if not addressed. His wife handled it with quiet efficiency, guiding him and the maid through the necessary steps without revealing the full complexity of the matter. He watched closely, learning how to navigate the delicate balance between discretion and action. The maid played her part seamlessly, responding to instructions with precision and care. He realized that her role was not merely functional. It was integral to the smooth operation of the household and to the protection of the hidden responsibilities his wife managed. Observing her interactions, he began to understand the subtle ways in which trust and cooperation were maintained. As the evening progressed, he and his wife sat together in the living room. The house was quiet, the events of the day settling into a calm rhythm. He felt a mixture of relief and anticipation. Relief that the immediate challenges had been handled successfully, and anticipation for the ongoing journey of understanding, trust that lay ahead. "I see now that there is more to your world than I ever realized," he said softly. "I am learning, and I want to continue learning. I want to support you, even if I don't understand everything at once." She reached for his hand, holding it firmly. "You are learning," she said, "and your support means more than you know. Life is full of challenges, and understanding often comes in stages. What matters most is trust, patience, and the willingness to be present. The rest will follow in time." The days turned into weeks, and he continued to observe, learn, and participate in the subtle dynamics of their household. He became more attuned to the unspoken communication between his wife and the maid, to the careful orchestration of daily tasks, and to the hidden responsibilities that shaped their lives. Each day brought new insights, new lessons in patience, understanding, and empathy. One evening, a minor disagreement arose between the maid and another household employee. He watched as his wife handled the situation with calm authority, addressing concerns, mediating differences, and maintaining harmony without revealing unnecessary details. He realized that her ability to manage conflict, protect her household, and maintain discretion was extraordinary. The depth of her strength and intelligence became clearer with each passing day. He felt a growing sense of respect and admiration for both his wife and the maid. He understood that their lives were interconnected in ways he had never appreciated, The maid was more than a worker. She was a trusted part of the system his wife had created, and she played a vital role in maintaining order, safety, and balance. His wife, meanwhile, navigated complex responsibilities with grace, courage, and strategic thinking as the evening came to a close. He reflected on the journey he had begun weeks ago. Starting with the accidental discovery in the maid's room, he realized that understanding and trust were not immediate achievements, but ongoing processes. They required observation, empathy, patience, and the willingness to accept that some truths reveal themselves only in their own time. He felt a sense of connection and a partnership with his wife that he had not experienced before. The accidental discovery had been the beginning of a profound transformation in their relationship, one that would deepen over time as he continued to learn, support, and trust. He understood that life was full of hidden layers, that love required courage and patience, and that the journey of understanding was as important as the knowledge itself. That night, as he lay in bed, he thought about the lessons he had learned. He had seen strength, courage, and intelligence in his wife, and respect, skill, and discretion in the maid. He realized that the ordinary rhythms of life were often supported by extraordinary dedication behind the scenes. The household, once familiar and predictable, had become a landscape of subtle lessons, emotional depth, and human resilience. He knew that the days ahead would continue to reveal more, and he was ready to face them with patience, trust, and an open heart. The days had become a rhythm of quiet understanding and careful observation. He no longer felt like an outsider looking into a mysterious world. Slowly, he had begun to integrate into the hidden layers of their household, understanding the subtle ways in which his wife and the maid maintained balance and order. The house was alive with unseen energies, responsibilities, and actions that now made sense in ways they had never before. One morning, he noticed a small envelope on the kitchen counter. It was addressed to him in his wife's familiar handwriting. He picked it up carefully, feeling a mixture of curiosity and anticipation. Inside was a note, written with care and precision. It explained some of the responsibilities she had been managing, the reasons for her secrecy, and the importance of discretion. Reading it, he felt a deep sense of understanding and respect. He realized how much thought and effort had gone into maintaining harmony and protecting the people involved. Later that day, he found himself in the maid's room again, not out of accident, but out of intention. He wanted to see for himself the space where so many hidden actions had taken place. The room was quiet and orderly, just as it had always been, but it now held a deeper meaning. It was a place where trust, courage, and responsibility intersected. He understood why it had been off limits, why it held secrets that were not yet ready to be shared. His wife joined him there, standing quietly beside him. She did not speak immediately, allowing him to take in the space, to absorb its significance. He turned to her and saw the calm confidence in her eyes, the subtle strength that had guided her through countless challenges. He realized that the journey of understanding was as much about learning to see as it was about being told. "Now you understand, even if only partially," she said softly. "You see how much goes on behind the scenes, how much care and thought are required. Life is not always visible on the surface, and trust is built on more than words. It is built on presence, awareness, and patience." He nodded slowly, feeling the weight of her words. The accidental discovery weeks ago had led to this moment, a moment of shared understanding and mutual respect. He realized that his relationship with his wife had deepened in ways he had never anticipated. He had learned to appreciate her courage, her intelligence, and her unwavering dedication to maintaining the delicate balance of their lives. Over the next few days, he continued to participate in the hidden workings of the household. He observed, assisted, and learned. Each day brought new insights, new lessons in trust, empathy, and discretion. He began to understand the subtle ways in which his wife navigated challenges, the careful steps she took to protect everyone involved, and the resilience required to maintain harmony. One evening, a minor crisis arose. A small misunderstanding between household staff threatened to escalate. He watched as his wife intervened calmly, addressing concerns, clarifying misunderstandings, and ensuring that the situation did not spiral out of control. Her composure and strategic thinking were remarkable. He realized that the harmony of their household depended on her ability to manage both seen and unseen forces with precision and care. He stepped in to assist when needed, applying the lessons he had learned through observation. The experience was challenging, but it was also empowering. He saw firsthand how trust, patience, and careful communication could resolve conflicts without unnecessary tension. He felt a sense of pride in being part of a team that maintained balance and order. Guided by his wife's wisdom, as the crisis passed, he and his wife sat together in the garden, the evening air calm and filled with the scent of blooming flowers. He reflected on the journey they had been on, from the moment of accidental discovery to this present moment of shared understanding. The experience had changed him. He had learned patience, humility, and the value of observing before acting. He had gained insight into the complexity of life and the depth of his wife's character. "I see now how much you do, how much thought goes into every decision," he said softly. "I understand why you had to keep some things private, and I appreciate the trust you've shown in bringing me into your world, even gradually. I feel closer to you now than I ever have." She smiled, her hand reaching for his. "And I feel closer to you as well," she said. Trust and understanding grow through shared experiences, through patience and empathy. You have shown that you are willing to learn, to observe, and to support. That is more important than knowing every detail immediately. The weeks turned into months, and he found a new rhythm in their life. He had learned to appreciate the unseen efforts that kept their household functioning smoothly. He had grown to respect the quiet dedication of the maid, who played an essential role in maintaining order, and he had come to admire the intelligence, strength, and courage of his wife. Together, they navigated challenges with patience and understanding, facing each situation with calm deliberation and careful judgment. The household was more harmonious than ever, built on a foundation of trust, respect, and shared responsibility. He understood that life was not just about what was visible, but about the effort, thought, and care that went on behind the scenes. One evening, as they sat quietly together in the living room, he reflected on the journey they had shared. The accidental discovery in the maid's room had been a turning point, a moment that revealed the depth and complexity of their lives. It had challenged him, taught him, and ultimately brought them closer together. He realized that love was not just about familiarity or comfort, but about understanding, trust, and shared experiences. He looked at his wife, seeing not just the person he had married, but the strength, intelligence, and courage that had guided her through countless hidden challenges. He felt a deep sense of gratitude and admiration. The journey had been unexpected, sometimes confusing, but ultimately transformative. He understood that life's true depth often lay beneath the surface, in the quiet moments, the unseen efforts, and the trust built through patience and empathy. The night settled softly around their home, and he felt a sense of peace. He had learned to observe, to trust, and to support. He had grown to understand the delicate balance of their household, the hidden responsibilities, and the quiet strength that guided their lives. The accidental discovery in the maid's room had been the beginning of a journey of trust, understanding, and love. A journey that would continue to shape their lives in profound ways. He realized that life was full of hidden layers, and that true understanding required patience, empathy, and a willingness to embrace the unknown. The lessons he had learned would stay with him forever, shaping not just his relationship with his wife, but his view of the world and the people around him. The journey had transformed him, and in that transformation, he found a deeper connection, a stronger bond, and a newfound appreciation for the quiet strength and intelligence that had always been beside him. Waiting to be seen, understood, and respected, the following weeks unfolded with a sense of quiet transformation. He had grown accustomed to the subtle rhythms of the house, the delicate balance between the seen and the unseen, and the thoughtful orchestration of life that his wife had managed all along. Each day brought new understanding, new lessons, a deeper appreciation for the careful decisions she had made and continued to make. The house, once ordinary and predictable, now felt like a living, breathing space where every action had meaning and purpose. He found himself observing more than ever, noticing small gestures and details that had once gone unnoticed. The way she moved through the rooms, the way she communicated with the maid and other staff, the quiet efficiency in handling unexpected challenges at all revealed a world of diligence, intelligence, and quiet courage. He realized that the life they shared was richer and more complex than he had imagined, and that his role was no longer just a husband in name, but a partner in understanding and respect. One morning, as he entered the kitchen, he found a note waiting for him on the counter. His wife had left it while she went for a short errand. He unfolded it carefully, reading her words slowly. It was a reflection, a gentle explanation of her thoughts, feelings, and the reasons behind her decisions. The note reminded him that life often required patience, and that trust was built not only through immediate understanding but also through consistent presence and empathy. He felt a wave of gratitude and a deeper connection to her as he absorbed the words. Throughout the day, he found himself reflecting on the past weeks, the accidental discovery in the maid's room, the gradual unveiling of her hidden responsibilities, and the lessons he had learned about patience, observation, and trust. Each memory carried a mix of surprise, admiration, and emotional growth. He understood that the experience had changed him, shaped him, and strengthened his bond with his wife in ways he could never have anticipated. Later that afternoon, a small incident occurred. A minor mistake in the household caused a ripple of tension, and he watched as his wife addressed it with calm authority. She guided the staff through the correction process, clarified misunderstandings, and ensured that everyone involved understood their roles. He stepped in to assist where appropriate, applying the insights he had gained from careful observation over the past weeks. The situation was resolved smoothly, and he felt a sense of accomplishment and pride in being part of the resolution. Even in a supporting role, as evening fell, the household settled into its familiar rhythm. He and his wife sat together in the garden, the soft glow of the setting sun casting long shadows and filling the air with warmth. They spoke quietly, sharing thoughts and reflections about the day, their experiences, and the lessons learned. He realized that communication had evolved beyond simple words. It now included shared understanding, empathy, and the subtle recognition of effort and intention. "I never realized how much went on behind the scenes," he said softly. "Every day I see more of the care, thought, and effort you put into maintaining everything. It's incredible, and it makes me appreciate you even more." She reached for his hand, holding it gently but firmly. "And I appreciate you," she said. "Your willingness to observe, to learn, and to support has made all the difference. Life is complex, and understanding comes gradually. Together, we navigate it with patience, trust, and care." He nodded, feeling the truth in her words. He realized that the journey they had undertaken was not about immediate understanding or instant revelation. It was about growth, shared experience, and the gradual unveiling of life's hidden layers. Each day was an opportunity to learn, to observe, and to participate in a partnership. Built on trust and mutual respect, the maid moved through the house with her usual calm efficiency. Her presence, a quiet reminder of the structure and support that enabled the household to function seamlessly. He observed her interactions, noting how she responded to instructions, anticipated needs, and contributed to the overall harmony of the home. He understood that her role, though often invisible in its significance, was essential to the balance and safety his wife worked so diligently to maintain as the days passed. Small moments of connection and understanding multiplied. A glance, a shared word, a gentle touch, all carried weight and meaning. He began to recognize the depth of emotional intelligence his wife possessed, her ability to navigate complexity with grace, and her capacity to maintain order without sacrificing empathy or kindness. He felt a growing sense of admiration, not just for her actions, but for the principles and values that guided them. One morning, a letter arrived for his wife, marked urgent. He watched as she read it carefully, her face composed yet serious. She explained to him that it required immediate attention, but that the details could wait for a more private discussion. He realized that her life extended beyond the household, encompassing responsibilities and challenges that demanded discretion and thoughtful decision-making. It reinforced his understanding that trust and patience were essential in their relationship, as some truths could only be revealed at the right time. That evening, they shared a quiet dinner, the table set simply but with care. Conversation flowed naturally, yet with a new depth. They spoke of daily experiences, minor challenges, and reflections on lessons learned. He felt a sense of balance and stability, a recognition that their partnership had evolved into something more resilient and harmonious. He appreciated the subtlety of their connection, the way understanding had grown through observation, experience, and shared patience. Later that night, he found himself reflecting on the transformation within himself. He had moved from confusion and uncertainty to a place of empathy, understanding, and active participation. The accidental discovery in the maid's room had been a catalyst for growth, prompting him to see beyond surface appearances and recognize the depth, courage, and intelligence that had always been present in his wife's actions. He felt a renewed sense of purpose in supporting her, contributing to the household, and nurturing their shared life. He also reflected on the lessons of discretion and subtle communication. Observing the maid, understanding her role, recognizing the unseen effort required to maintain harmony, had expanded his perspective.